Hello again, I am Blunty. So, Apple. Love them or hate them because, for some reason, those are the only two options available to the monkey brain's predilections towards trying to transpose brands as replacements for tribes for some reason. But Apple are sidetracked already. But Apple are about to revolutionize yet another industry, or are re-revolutionizing one they already revolutionized, kind of, sort of. And yes, I can hear some of you screaming in the comments already about Apple, revolutions, innovation, invention, and marketing. And I promise I will get to that stuff before we are done here. But first, we have to lay some foundation and set the scene. So, let's talk about virtual reality, mixed reality, and augmented reality, 3D movies, and 3D home video. Early next year, Apple will release their first entry into what, up until now, has just largely been called VR. They're calling it the Apple Vision Pro. It's a high-end luxury price device which is being marketed as a spatial computer, and very specifically not as a VR headset, or even being called a headset at all by any official marketing, because headset sounds nerdy and Apple want to sound innovative and cool. And spatial computing is probably going to become an industry-wide term. Apple didn't invent it, by the way. They're using it. It has been around for a little while, but Apple are certainly going to popularize it, aren't they? So we better all just get used to hearing it. I'm sure sooner or later it won't sound quite so stupid and pretentious. Probably. Anyway, Apple are designing this thing for a very intuitive way of operation, using eye tracking and finger and hand tracking and motion gestures and voice input to naturally interact with extended reality apps and interfaces. And, if you hadn't noticed any of their marketing so far, not a single one of any kind of video game inspired controller in sight. Because you see, Apple's devices, it's not a toy, it's not a game machine, it's a serious device for productivity and interpersonal relations and enjoying your media. And their marketing is focusing heavily on casual, social use, productivity, and more passive sit-back entertainment styles. And while the Vision Pro has already been heavily criticized for several seeming shortcomings, in the eyes at least of the existing VR user communities and specialist media, like for example its wallet-shattering price and clumsy external battery pack, it is also packed with very sophisticated sensory technology, much higher quality cameras than the average VR headset can boast, and very high-end twin 4K OLED screens, and of course powered by Apple's remarkably powerful custom CPUs that the industry is still playing catch-up on over on phones and laptops. And uniquely, there's been a lot of design efforts spent to make it more socially comfortable to wear and be seen wearing, with the external display for CGI recreated eyes of the actual user inside. And they look and react like because they use the eye tracking inside to render the CGI eyes on the outside. So it's a weird level of commitment to breaking down that separation between someone in a headset and someone sitting next to you without the headset. And that's really important to what Apple are trying to get to here. And this first product is not designed as a product for mass adoption. This is an aspirational luxury device, and a more affordable, more accessible version is expected a year after launch, with the next typical yearly Apple release cycle of upgrades and new models and whatnot. But as we move towards all of that, the Apple Vision Pro will, I think, have already changed the path of this space. And in typical Apple style, it's going to be by reimagining something familiar and making it more accessible, more desirable, and more enjoyable to use. And what I'm getting at with all of this is it's going to be 3D video. The extremely high quality screens in the Apple Vision Pro are going to be great for watching content, and doing so on what I perceive to be huge screens you can place wherever you like. It's already something people are enjoying on existing devices. Most recently, there's been a lot of buzz around the mixed reality viewing in the Meta Quest 3 headset with its updated full color pass-through compared to its predecessor model. And indeed, the Quest 3 with its new lenses and improved screen resolution is a very, very nice device for watching content, whether it be 3D content, VR content, or flat screen content projected on screens. And while I personally tend to watch content in VR mode, in either voids or in virtual cinemas or virtual rooms, because I enjoy the immersion that allows me to focus entirely on the show or the movie I'm watching, a lot of people out there are really enjoying having personal screens that present massively larger than their phone, for example, something hands-free that goes with them as they walk around, and something they can view without losing any situational awareness of the real world around them, and can still go about their other household tasks while watching, feeding the cat, doing the dishes, vacuuming, whatever. The number of videos on social media I've seen over the last month of people watching YouTube or movies or whatever in floating windows while doing the dishes or vacuuming or sitting in the back garden is, there's been a lot of them. And yes, some of that is just the novelty of that ability to do that, but it is something people want to do as well. And the basic practical physical nature of how these headsets or spatial computers work for showing you stuff, that being they have two independently rendered scenes, one for each eye. Now, while older 3D tech for TV and movies and whatnot relied on showing both left and right images on a single screen and using some sort of optical trickery to separate them, either with anaglyph stereoscopy, those colored cellophane glasses, the cardboard things. They were, a bit of a trend back in the 50s or whatever. I'm not that old, I wasn't there. Or the more recent descendants, the polarized glasses, or even the active shutter LCD glasses, all of which had various drawbacks and limitations that affected the image quality poorly, the clarity, the brightness, the sharpness. In some way, they all messed with the image quality, the viewing experience. But here's the thing. None of those issues exist when you use two separate independently rendered screens. And the 3D effect you get from doing that is not only absolutely consistent, but very comfortable to watch, flicker-free and perfectly crisp, perfectly bright, clear and color-rich. It is fantastic. It is easily my favorite way to watch 3D movies. Not that there's a big wide choice of them these days, with 3D cinema failing to catch on in any real way and to be the ticket-selling draw card that like James Cameron and his pals wanted it to be when they tried to kick off the last 3D movie trend in the early 2000s, right? But with that pushback then came also an attempt to make in-home 3D TVs a thing, so they could charge a premium to sell you 3D movies for your home viewing as well. This came with a few different technologies, but most common was active shutter or polarized glasses, which never really got much traction from consumers for various reasons, like having to have everyone watching have their own set of glasses. The shutter type glasses needed to be recharged. And of course, the reluctance to just replace your perfectly fine working TV set with a new one just to get 3D for a small selection of 3D movies and nothing else. It made very little sense to a lot of people, and adoption was very slow. And with a small, fractured home 3D TV market came little incentive to spend the extra money on production and post-production to make 3D content for anything but the biggest budget superhero stuff. So it sort of self-defeated itself? Is that a sentence I can say? Nobody had the stuff to watch, so they weren't making the stuff to watch. And because they didn't make the stuff to watch, nobody bought the stuff to watch it. And while the whole thing never quite died, with like the James Cameron type still tugging away on it with new Avatar films and whatnot, it's hardly content-rich environment, is it? But here's the thing about that. In the last 20 years, technology has marched on, and the way we consume video, TV and movies has changed. When I started doing the YouTube thing, for example, in 2006, yes, I really have been doing this for that long, 100% of people were watching my videos on desktops or laptop computers, because that was the only way you could watch YouTube. Snap forward to 2023 here, and 47% of you are watching on your phone, while only 35% of you are still watching on computers, 12% of you on TVs, 5% on tablets. And that's just YouTube. That's just my YouTube content, actually. In fact, the statistics on this for a YouTube channel with a younger audience demographic than mine are even more skewed towards small, personal, portable screens. Phones, in other words. And that kind of personal viewing has become massively more common across all content in recent years. Even full-length Hollywood movies, much to the chagrin of directors and cinemaphiles everywhere who lament these carefully crafted works of audio-visual creativity and art being viewed on tiny little screens with little speakers, on moving trains and whatnot. But here comes Apple with a device that is highly portable, can give you a high visual quality, big screen experience anywhere you can sit or even stand, and can show 3D content in the most ideal way possible, at least right now with the technology we have. And this device is being designed for use by and marketed towards not the early adopter tech nerd crowd, but to regular normies. And Apple will be pushing this for watching 3D content on virtual screens. Because while home 3D movies now is just basically all about 3D Blu-ray, that's your choice. That's about to change. The keen-eyed have already spotted changes. 3D movies are starting to be listed on the Apple TV storefront, for example. A properly mainstream streaming service for 3D movie viewing. Right now, there's only like 3 options, maybe 4, and none of them are great. There's Vudu, which, 90% of you have never heard of that, right? V-U-D-U, Vudu? Shrug, right? There's 3D Blu-ray, of course, which, lol, physical media in 2020 something, let me go get my Walkman and roller skates, grandpa. And then there's Big Screen, a VR-only app available on multiple platforms and storefronts, and you can actually rent streaming 3D movies through it, and regular movies for that matter, and watch them in a virtual cinema, even share the experience with friends, all sitting together in your virtual cinema with your little avatars next to each other, having a chat or whatever. It's pretty cool. But it is also hardly a comprehensive rental library they have available, and the quality of the streaming is fine, but it's also regionally locked for a lot of stuff, so your SOL, depending on where you live. Meanwhile, Apple have a household name and a mainstream global distribution rental and streaming platform that is already a successful and popular product with an established and installed user base, and all they need to do was put a new file on the service for 3D movies to be part of it. So lacking in friction. Whoosh, done. And with that will come the inevitable followers. How long before do you think Disney Plus and Netflix and Amazon Prime all start offering 3D movies too? Do you think they're just going to sit there and let Apple own that space as it gets set to expand, as wearables like VR headsets and spatial computers and XR glasses get ever more practical and available and affordable? I don't think they will. But here's the thing about that. That is just Apple's left hook. The right cross is already about to land. Their newest iPhone can record what they are calling spatial video, which 3D video to you and me. There's slightly a little bit more to it, but for the purpose of this discussion, it doesn't really matter. But using some clever software trickery and computational photogrammetry and running both the standard camera and the wide-angle camera together to get 2 different viewpoints, and the new iPhone basically can generate depth-correct 3D video files. You can record in 3D from your phone. Easy. And it spits out files that people have already figured out how to quickly, automatically convert into standard 3D video formats that can be viewed on 3D TVs, 3D projectors, and yes, other VR and MR and XR headsets and glasses. Remember what happened to selfies and vlogging and Instagram and whatnot when Apple led the way with high-quality phone cameras and started pushing the industry forward in a tech race for phone camera quality? And how that decimated a whole ass industry of compact camera sales within a couple of years. Well, Apple were not first with phone cameras. They weren't first for video recording on phones. They invented none of it, but what they did do was make it attractive and easy and accessible. And that's what's about to be happening with 3D video. There's already a fairly good selection of 3D video cameras out there. Some are even as simple as point-and-shoot cameras. I've talked about them on the channel here a few years back and whatnot. Basically, they're GoPros, but for 3D. And even the world's most recognized camera brand, Canon, are still doing 180-degree 3D VR with a specialized lens they've developed especially for it, for their R5 and R6 mirrorless cameras and the like, and shoots at 8K resolution. It's really good quality. Hell, there's even been 3D cameras you could snap right onto your phone. For that matter, there are several companies that have released mobile phones with 3D video and photo capabilities built right into them already, years ago. Some even had 3D and so-called holographic screens on them, so you could watch 3D content on the phone itself, without any glasses or anything. And that was from one of the biggest brands in high-end cinema cameras, Red. You heard of Red cameras, right? Probably. But not a single one of them made a dent in the industry. None of them caught on. None of them changed the course of the market, and nothing they tried became the de facto standard. But when Apple start letting iPhone owners make their own 3D video content in a simple, easy, seamless, friction-free way, and in a format that can be easily shared, easily viewed, and even, shared and viewed in 2D, because they have made the file just sort of work as a 2D format as well, in a really seamless way, no conversions or anything, it just shows one of the views, basically. I'm betting things start to move then. When both of these products, the new iPhone and the Vision Pro, are out on the market. They're already starting to shift. In 1984, the Macintosh, the Mac, led the way and ushered in a whole new era of window-based point-and-click and drag graphical user interface styles that we still use today, and with it the mouse as a primary interface device for our computers. They didn't invent the GUI or the mouse, by the way. They just made it work in a way people wanted to use it. In 2001, the iPod, while of course not the first personal MP3 player by a long shot, it changed the way the average person started listening to their music and led to a surge and complete sea change in personal music players and what they look like and what they were and what their feature sets were and how you use the damn things. Alongside that came iTunes, which forever changed not just how we acquire our music, but how the entire music industry itself operates from the ground up. It was massive. Following on from that, the same thing happened to TV shows and movies as well. And of course, Apple are why we call podcasts, because of the iPod. And that was another complete change in how we produce, obtain, consume that specific kind of content. The iPhone in 2007, of course, completely upended the mobile phone market again, leading the way in an industry-wide change to how we interact with those devices, what we do with them, and the standards of the form factor itself, both physically and the UI design, completely shifted after Apple bought out the iPhone. Everyone else went, oh, yeah, that's the way we should be doing it. Let's do that. And yes, I know, Android predates Apple, but have you seen the Android phones before Apple did theirs? They look like little Blackberries. They had little keyboards and everything. Oh, so cute. Then the iPhone came out, and all of a sudden Android devices were, we look just like the Apple phone for no reason. The iPad, the Apple Watch, AirPods, all did something so attractive for end users. The entire industry around portable computing, wearable devices, and even earphones pivoted around them to follow suit. A lot of people bitch and whine and thrash about Apple and screeching about how Apple doesn't really innovate and they just pretend they invented things and changed the world. And there is, of course, a lot of truth in that. Their marketing is amazing. But the whiners miss the point. It doesn't matter if Apple didn't invent MP3 players or phones with touchscreens or true wireless earphones or whatever. It doesn't matter even slightly that they didn't invent or innovate any of this, because what Apple did do with those things is make products and the marketing messages around them so extremely appealing to regular people, they changed the course of whole industries permanently. Made words like MP3 and apps and podcast and tablet so common household words and so accessible that even out-of-touch zero-nerd normies know them. Your grandma knows what a podcast is. They made nerdy shit accessible and cool and, more importantly, easy to use for the non-technically minded, for regular non-nerd types. And they do so without dumbing things down so much they become unappealing to actual nerds and power users who want to do cleverer things with them. That's Apple's biggest strength, and is something a lot of Apple's biggest competitors really struggle with balancing, because that's a really hard thing to balance in a product. But Apple got it figured out. For the most part, they got it figured out, and everyone else walks in their shadow. Now, it's also probably very fair to say Apple are not quite as good as all that as they used to be, and maybe that's the loss of Steve Jobs. Maybe it's just time, whatever. You can only be that successful that often for that long, and they're not always good at it. The Apple HomePod, for example, miserable, embarrassing failure of device and system. But I do really think that Apple Vision Pro, combined with the approach to 3D video content that they're branding Spacial Video, that both the Vision Pro and the new iPhone are capable of recording, is going to be one of those moments in time where the industry starts to pivot around what Apple do. And everything that came before was just old and busted, and everyone's going to do things the Apple way from now on. Or at least bounce off of what Apple are doing. Because Apple, I think, have found the right recipe, the right mix of other people's ingredients to cook up something regular people want to use, or eat in this metaphor, I suppose. It's going to be real interesting either way to watch what happens next. Over the next year, things are going to be very, very interesting. I've already started to dabble once again in 3D and VR video. I did it years ago. I played with it, and the devices just weren't really there. Like, they were awkward to edit, and the quality really wasn't that awesome, and very few people could watch it in the format it was designed to be watched in. But that's obviously changed a lot in recent years. And again, once Apple comes out with this stuff, there might be a bit of a sea change in how we approach that style of content as well. Instead of doing 180, 3D VR video or something, maybe just 3D box video like this becomes a little more practical to do. I mean, YouTube already have the capability of showing that style of video and 180 video and 360 3D video and all that sort of stuff. So there's already a distribution platform out there for sharing your 3D videos with other people in a really seamless and easy way. YouTube, it's been around for like a couple of decades now, super easy. So yeah, again, just it's not the first time this has been able to be done, because there have been lots of different ways to make simple 3D video before, even just using two phones. I've done that before as well, using two phones sort of on the same little prop thing I built to film two separate videos and mush them together and make a 3D video. That's totally possible. But Apple make things seamless. Apple remove friction for regular people. So you'll be able to just point, click, record your 3D video. There'll be simple editing apps to trim it down, put captions on it or whatever you want to do, and squirt it online somewhere and show it to your friends and family in 2D and 3D, depending on what kind of device they're using. That's what I'm saying. That's what Apple does. They make things frictionless for normies. Anyway, that's what I think. Tell me in the down below what you think about all this. I'm sure you are already, because this video is largely about Apple, which always inspires people to express themselves, doesn't it? Thanks for watching. I'm Blundy. I'll catch you next time. Thank you, as always, to the patrons up above there. Who's above me on support. I appreciate very, very much. Thank you, guys.